Are you struggling to make sense of what was done to you? Here, you will find many details to help you to understand so that you can get them out of your head and out of your life. Welcome to Psycho Begun. Maybe you've been trying to recover for months, reading, watching videos, talking it through. You feel you should be better at this point. And yet something is holding you back. The guilt, the obligation, the second guessing, that nagging feeling that maybe you were the problem. You're working hard, but you're still stuck. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's often not what you see that keeps you trapped, it's what you don't see. Hi there, I'm David McDermott, and I want to talk about two blind spots that quietly sabotage recovery. One is the hidden sense of obligation that was installed in you. The other is the fact that you were targeted from the very beginning. Until those two pieces click into place, people will struggle with guilt and doubt. So let's put these pieces in place. Manipulators are experts at creating debt. As part of building a power imbalance, they convince you that the good in your life is because of them, the bad in your life is because of you. You may even have heard such things as, "Are you not grateful for what I bring to the relationship? Just remember, you wouldn't be where you are right now except for me." Even horrific things such as, "I made you. You're nothing without me." They will use all sorts of trickery to lead you to believe that you're constantly in debt to them. They will remind you over and over about all the good things they've done for you, all the things they provided, all the sacrifices they've made, and you're supposed to owe them for this. They're also very good at using reciprocity, or rather misusing reciprocity against you. The idea of reciprocity is that if I do you a favour, you owe me one. It's a healthy social rule and helps society to function. They will do something you haven't asked for and expect repayment. They may arrive home with tickets for the cinema and make out that they've organised a special treat for you. What they don't tell you is that it didn't actually cost them anything. A friend of theirs couldn't make it and gave them the tickets, but you end up feeling special and indebted. The trick is subtle. You didn't ask for a favour, but you're made to feel you owe one. That's manipulation. Robert Cialdini, in his book Influence, does a really nice job of describing reciprocity as one of his 6 weapons of influence. He points out that the reason it works is that in every culture on the planet, we teach people about this idea of reciprocity because it helps to grease the wheels of society, so to speak. We teach the kids that this is a good habit to have. If you let Johnny play with your toys in your house today, when you go to his house, he'll let you play with his. After some time, it becomes automatic. After that, we never question it or think very much about it. That's why manipulators can weaponize it. For example, they may do something once and expect to be paid back forevermore. Or they do a tiny favour and expect something huge in return. The way to deal with reciprocity is to understand that the bigger picture operates at more than just the favour level. The rule is, whatever way you treat me, I'm allowed to treat you back that way. When you recognise that somebody is telling you that they did you a favour, for example, and you haven't asked for one, then this person in front of you is trying to manipulate you. That's what you're dealing with. That's what you're allowed to respond to. Telemarketers can take advantage of this. "Hi, I'm Kevin from ABC Company and I'm just wondering if you'd like to save some money on your telephone bill. What's your name?" They've shared something with you. They've offered to save you some money. So for many people, it's very difficult to not actually give out their name. They feel obliged to reciprocate and answer the question. In future interactions, the rule is this. Anytime there's an illusion of generosity, you should respond to the manipulation. If someone tries to manufacture obligation, you are not required to comply. But what about the past sense of obligation that still lingers? How do you manage that? Whenever you feel it and you think of all the things that they did for you, you stop and you wait a moment. Then you ask, what about all the nasty things they did to me? If you need to make a list, go ahead and write it out. The insults, the belittling, the gaslighting, the silent treatments, the broken promises, the threats. The next time you can consult this list and even add to it if you need to. Something important to keep in mind here is that bad people often do nice things. It's part of the con. It's part of the manipulation. They know they will earn brownie points and build trust with people if they do nice things for them. However, nice people generally don't repeatedly do bad things to others. Think of some of the nasty things that your manipulator did to you. Take a moment. And now ask yourself, if somebody actually loved you and cared about you, would they do those things to you? Would you do these things to somebody you actually loved? If a friend of yours came to you and described this bad treatment to you, what would you recommend to them? Would you be advising them that this person really loves you, they just don't know how to express it, and they were probably frustrated at the time? I don't think so. Well, the same thing applies in your situation. There is no justification for bad behavior and abuse. No amount of nice things makes up or negates abusive behavior. There may have been nice things in the relationship, but if there was abuse, there was abuse. That's what you have to pay attention to. That's what you have to deal with. You owe your abuser nothing. Now we move to something a little more difficult. The beginning. Many people carry enormous guilt and shame about choosing wrong, especially if there was more than one bad relationship, because then it seems to you that there must be something about you that's leading to all these problems. One aspect of the relationship that's very important to understand is the very beginning. Why? Because very often things are not exactly as they seem. So what I suggest you do is remember as clearly as you possibly can from the first moment. How did you meet this person? How was it set up? In particular, what was your initial impression? Many say they had a weird feeling or even disgust or revulsion in the first moments. What happened after that? What kind of things did this person do and say? Was there anything else that was a little bit off? So, for example, you had decided you've got to take a break from relationships, and all of a sudden you meet this person, and then 2 days later, you're in a relationship. In other words, you went against your own plans. All these details can be very, very important. Why? Because it's typical that when the manipulator met you, in their head, they decided to target you, to go after you. These people are particularly good at reading others. They can very quickly size people up. Who is empathetic, loyal, forgiving? And they figure out how to push the boundaries. They will very quickly start to pay you lots of attention. The love bombing kicks in fast. A particular thing to look out for, as I say, is where you ended up going against some plan or rule that you had in place already. You decided not to date people who smoked or people who had kids already, but when you met this person, you decided in the moment to ignore your own criteria. Or in the first second you felt that something was wrong, but you ignored it and carried on anyway. These are major red flags. The effects of love bombing are such that you go beyond your limits and do things you'd planned not to do. The manipulator was behaving in such a way that you threw caution to the wind and decided to give things a whirl. Their actions were not random. They deliberately pushed you beyond your limits. You may have been in a situation, for example, where you felt the relationship was going too fast. You said so, and they backed off, reassuring you, oh, yes, yes, we can go whatever speed you feel comfortable at. And then you relax and you think, oh, good, they're respecting me. But 5 minutes later, the manipulator is pushing you to go at top speed again. Later on, you look back and you think, it was my decision. But was it? Or were you being maneuvered subtly and strategically while believing you were in control? Think also about any doubt or questions you had in the early part of the relationship. What happened about those? Did you actually mention them to the manipulator? If you did, I'm sure that they reassured you in one way or the other. However, think again. They may have said one thing, but what did they actually do? This is one of the big indicators that you're with somebody who's a psychopath, a narcissist, or a sociopath. They'll tell you one thing and do something different. But be aware that in the heat of the moment, it's often actually very difficult to recognize that. Why? Irish people talk about the gift of the gab. They can be very agile with words. They'll explain away things. They'll lie about things. They'll justify things in a way that seems plausible. But while they said one thing, they did another. They are actively manipulating you, shaping your perceptions, nudging your decisions. It's important to be able to recognize all these details. Why? Because you begin to see how they were guiding you along a certain path, allowing you to believe it was your decision, allowing you to think that you were in control, whereas in fact they were the ones in the driver's seat. A brilliant movie for this is the movie Body Heat from 1981. If you do watch the movie, ask yourself these questions on an ongoing basis. Who's making the decisions and who believes they're making the decisions? The movie is very educational from this point of view. So it's very important to be able to see the subtleties of the tactics that these people use against you. If you don't, you will continue to blame yourself and feel that many things that happened in the relationship were your responsibility. When you begin to understand the level at which these people were controlling you, your perceptions, your thinking, your decision making, it becomes clear that they were very heavily influencing all of these things, and the decisions you were making were not actually fully informed. You did not have all the information available in the system, available to you at the time. Therefore, the decisions you made were not fully your own. This matters. When you recognize how you were targeted, the shame and the guilt begin to fade. You are not foolish or weak or flawed. You are sized up, selected, and then skillfully maneuvered. If you continue to believe that you owe them something, that somehow you made the relationship happen, or even that you should have known better, then you will stay stuck in guilt and remorse. But when you see the obligation as installed and the beginning as engineered, then you stop asking what's wrong with me and you start asking what was done to me. But this is not about being a victim, it's about being clear. And that clarity is what allows you to get them out of your life and out of your head. In the next video, I will lay out how they tell subtle lies to you and how these lies change your identity. Mind yourself. Take care.